name is Joe Boyles, and I want to welcome you here to the Camp Weed and Cerveny Conference Center on two planes, if you will. One is that for the last 28 years I've been the manager of BoylesTreeFarm. This is my brother Fred, who assists me in that. He's from Athens, Georgia. This is our big sister, never to be introduced as our older sister, Maggie, from Glen St. Mary over in Baker County. We all work for Maggie, actually. And secondly, this is the part of the Diocese of Florida. We're on the Cerveny Conference Center side, summer camp for the kids, Camp Weed, named after a gentleman named Edward Garter Weed, the third bishop of the Diocese of Florida. I want to make sure we got that distinction correct. That's the location you're at. And my second gig is that I'm an Episcopal priest. So if anybody is acquainted with Monticello, come over to Christ Church on Monday, and I'll be happy to welcome everybody there. Chris Demers.
Hey, thank you, Joe. I want to welcome everybody. My name is Chris Demers. I run our Florida Land Steward program. I'm also active on the Florida Tree Farm program. I'm the Vice President of Communications for the Florida Tree Farm program. So we've kind of merged our extension activities with the Tree Farm program because it kind of makes sense. Our resources are provided to private landowners across the state, and that's the audience that the Florida Tree Farm program is really trying to reach and serve. And so it's been a good partnership over many years. I think it started around 2006. We started partnering closely with the Tree Farm program with our newsletter and workshops and resources. So happy to be a part of the program today. I want to recognize a couple of people that are here. Ginger Fiegel as our Florida Tree Farm president. Our Florida Tree Farm vice president is Mary Jackson back there. And there's several other folks that are in the room that are involved in the Tree Farm program that you're going to be meeting throughout the day. District coordinators, regional coordinators that are here to help you out with your tree farm planning and certifications. If you're due for certification, they kind of keep track of all of that aspect of the program. Just a word about the materials that we've put together for you today. In the booklet on the inside of the front cover, there's a table of contents that kind of shows you where everything is that's in the book. We've got some materials in there about the property. Joe's going to be giving a presentation this morning about his strategic plan. That's one thing that makes BoylesTreeFarm special and unique. It's kind of their strategic planning process that's been that kind of follows a program called Sterling program that Joe's been involved with. And he's going to be talking about that, and hopefully that can be useful to you as you're planning for the future of your property and planning for your future management. In another purpose of these programs, in addition to getting you in touch with showing you on the ground management practices, what things look like on the ground, different types of objectives, management strategies, put you in touch with the people that are available to help you. In this region, on the contact page, we've got folks that are with the Florida Forest Service, the Fish and Wildlife Commission, Extension Service, all the resource contacts that are operating in this area to help you with management and getting connected with that network of assistance. So take advantage of that. If you've got any questions or need to reach anybody after the program today, those contacts are on the inside of the front cover. At the end of the program, when we come back, we're going to be touring around this morning to 3 tracks. We're going to come back for lunch. Before you leave, and I'll be reminding you again to please click on that QR code with your phone. And I've got hard copies of the evaluation if you don't use the phone for those types of things. But we've got a QR code on the back. Scan that and fill out the program evaluation. Give us some feedback about what you're learning today. It's really important for us to report back our outcomes, our impacts, what people are learning. When we do a program, people say, so what? So that helps us answer the so what question. So fill out that evaluation. Like I said, I do have hard copies back there. Just let me know if you need a hard copy if you don't want to use the QR code. Lastly, I want to say congratulations to Joe Boyles and Fred and the family for all of their accomplishments to get this tree farm of the year. It's not an easy award to get. You got to really have to be have some things going, really good things going on the ground. Some very long-term planning. You have to have long-term vision, and a lot of great things happening on your property to get this award. And I would probably submit that it's probably this award is probably a long time coming, probably past due. This family has been in the tree farm program active for many years. I remember when I first started in this position, meeting Joe Boyles and at programs in Suwannee County. We've done workshops here at Camp Week before. So been interacting with Joe, serving Joe in this tree farm for a lot of years. So great to see him getting this award. And I want to thank Brian Cobble for nominating him for this award. The nomination process is a big part of that whole recognition. So, Joe, without further ado, thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you. On behalf of my family, these are the things we're going to cover. A little bit about our history, where we are today, the things we produce, what we've got going on this year. We'll talk about the strategic plan, how to stay profitable, and how to pass it on to the next generation. And it starts with this guy, my dad. In 1942, 83 years ago, when he was first lieutenant in the Army, 1 year out of the University of Florida, bought a 365-acre farm. That sounds like a lot for a 22-year-old to do in the early days of World War II. It certainly was. He did not inherit it. His payment to the commercial bank was $90 a month, which was 1/3 of his Army paycheck. So a person with incredible vision that passed that on to the remainder of our family. He is, when I was 3 years old, he planted his first slash pines, and he was a great believer in slash. We've changed a little bit since then. He died in 1991, and I'll show you how BoylesTreeFarm grew over that period of time and what we've done since. In fact, here we are. I mentioned the first one, Bachelor Lake, which is one of the places we'll visit today. 365 acres. Over the years, we've sold off 55 of that, primarily the home sites. But the vast majority of it still we have today. And there's a description in your booklet of that property and the different types of soils and the management we've got going on there. But over the years, you can see Dad continued to add to BTF up until this point right here. And at that point, we were about 1,145 acres. And then since his death in 1991, we've added 4 more tracts and basically double the size to 2,235 acres. And it's not only in Suwannee County, but also in Madison and in Hamilton. I'd like to take you to a couple of the other sites today, but there's just too much travel time, as you'll see in just a moment. In fact, we're where the star is right there. And you can see the 3 that are highlighted in green. And I would really like to take you up to Tract 8 and our newest tract up here by Cherry Lake, Tract 10. But that's just too much driving time. So we have kind of concentrated around the area here. That's what is on our tour today. Well, we produce pulpwood, saw logs, other timber products. We are very heavily into pine straw production. Multiply 2,235 acres by 78%, and those are pine straw fields. So that is a huge product for us. All of our 10 tracts have hunting leases on them, and we'll meet the hunters at the first site that we visit. And then as everybody in forestry knows, it's all about taking care of the land, improving the land, taking care of the water resources, understanding what photosynthesis is and what southern yellow pines do in terms of scrubbing carbon dioxide from the air, converting the carbon into what sail is, spitting out the oxygen. We've got the purest skies around. And then all the critters that call the land that we pay taxes on, which is we're doing this month, it's their property. So it's shared ownership, if you will, and we love them. So this year, we took out 150 truckloads of wood. We'll go by the area where we did that. Those were fairly young trees, 18-year-old slash pine. Majority of them went to the pulp mill up in Platteville. We have an area over on Tract 8 in Hamilton County that actually two areas that are adjacent to each other that we've got planted this winter in longleaf. And then the area that we just harvested in the spring, we're going to put in containerized loblolly seedlings. So we're using two nurseries right now. The longleaf are coming from the Blanton Nursery in Madison County. Funny story about those guys. When I got here 28 years ago, they were repairing chainsaws, small engine repair. 2 years ago, 40 million containerized seedlings in the nursery. That's quite a transformation. So I'm a big cheerleader for the Blantons. The other nursery we're using where the loblolly is coming from is up in Moultrie, Georgia, and that is the IFCO. And I have to tell you that that site that we're first going to visit, we haven't done as well on that site as we would like to. In fact, our last rotation, our return on investment was 4.2%. We got to do better than that. So we invited, thanks to our friends at IFCO, they suggested that we try an operation called Funga. And we have two representatives from that organization, Anthony and Anne-Marie, and this is a carbon credit system where you're going to be treating the seedlings. And Anthony, why don't you describe that?
Sounds great. No, thank you. I was just saying you were doing great. Essentially, we inoculate the seedlings with native, biodiverse mycorrhizal fungi. We plant control seedlings on every property. It's about 2%. And then we just watch the trees grow, treated versus untreated, and that delta in biomass we sell as a carbon credit to growers. We have an offtake agreement with Netflix, and we're paying out $9 per acre per year in addition to the additional biomass starting at year 3 up into final clear cap. We also work with the nursery to provide seedling upgrades, which we did this year. So I believe we all went from OP container to the top CMP or single mass pollinated.
Correct.
We covered that delta.
So this is the site that I'm talking about, and it's 71 acres out of that 310 that we'll be treating or planting. It's already been sprayed. You'll be able to see that on the tour. Probably an acre and a half or 2 acres will be the control group, and then the remainder will be the treated group. And then their folks are going to come in and measure the difference. And what we're told is that we'll have 30% more growth in the first 5 years. That's our goal. Maybe it'll even be better. That particular site, that's the one where we only grew in the last rotation at 4.2%, not counting inflation or any kind of discount for taxes. This little place down here, right before Hurricane Idea, we logged it. It was 28-year-old longleaf. We have it now replanted in longleaf. It's a 118-acre field. The back is also longleaf, 160 acres total. When we took the investment that we made in 1996 and looked at our income sources over 28 years, We grew at 12.4% annually. Now, if you were to, I were to offer that to you, you'd probably come and invest. That's my banker friend back in the back, John, says that's a pretty good rate of return. I'm a great believer in strategic planning. And in your book is a page which describes 16 questions and then an outline that my brother and I started with back in 2002. And page 4. Here's the thing that's important about this. The copy that the Florida Forest Service has is about a 2004 copy. It's way out of date. You can see this is dated February 2025. We update this plan every year because the tree farm changes every year. We've lost something, we've got additional income, maybe we've changed a hunting lease. So the plan is updated and we use it. I went out with my friend Ginger maybe 5-6 weeks ago. We went on a more extensive farm tour. She had lots of questions, really good questions. By the way, she's got really good eyesight when it comes to wildlife out there. That's her business. She's very good at that. But she would ask a question, and if I didn't have it at my fingertips, I can promise you it was in the book. So, if you think this could be of value to you, I would offer you this. There's an outline of how to do that that's in the book. I'm only a phone call away and all my contact information is right there for you. And phone calls are free. If you want me to get on the road and travel and help you through it, or even, God forbid, write the thing, I can do that, but it would be expensive model. But it's much better, we found, when we did it ourselves. And like I said, beginning of every year, it's updated. So I encourage you to think along those lines. And it really helps because everyone in our family has a copy of it. We make sure it's current. And we think succession is going to be a lot easier with something like that. In our plan, I tell folks, there's an old thing, if the roof catches fire, what's the first thing you grab and get out of there? This is the heart of the BTF plan. And you can see all the information that is down the left-hand side in terms of how everything is divided into 22 different blocks, what activities, what's on it. You can see that there are 2 blanks up here, poultry and IFCO and fungo is going to help us do that. And then down here on track A. So that's how we extend out into the future. And that's also really helpful when we budget. And we budget every year for the coming year and the 3 years after that. And we use this as a springboard to help us do that.
In 1991, our dad got sick, and 2 weeks later we had a funeral. And it was a complete shock. He was in great shape, running everything, all of his stuff. And one thing that any of us in the family know is that my father never threw away anything. And there was this bank of file cabinets in the garage. And they weren't just stuffed full, they were like going to explode. There was so much stuff in them. And 90% of it was junk. He saved every newspaper clipping about every, anyway, long story. And what Joe was still in the Air Force in far away, and it was like, what do we do? And we found buried an old file folder that had been opened up, and all the lines had been drawn in it with future years, every track, every piece. That was it. That was all hand done, but it was the plan. It's changed a lot. It's gotten more sophisticated, and we've added to it, but it all came from that, literally buried under a stack of papers where we found this long-term plan, which is what the book feeds into making. And I think if there's anything that's been an important secret to the success of our operation, it's that little chart right there.
Really want to emphasize the aspect of strategic planning, which everybody knows in forestry. If you can't think long-term, like Chris was saying, it's axiomatic with business you're in. We put a lot of money in up front, especially with high straw mine. We get some help from the Florida Forest Service, sometimes from Forest Landowners Association and organizations at a higher level. But obviously we believe in all of those things. We're, with a few exceptions, trying to plan everything toward high straw production as an important source of income. We need to do this is another thing I want to add. Since 2018, and we're talking about now close to 900 acres out of 1,900, so literally half. Everything we've been planting have been high-grade containerized seedlings. We have gone away from the bare root model. We're spending as much as 4 times as much for those seedlings, but we think we get them the return in terms of survivability, growth rate. It also enables us to plant fewer seedlings per acre. So there's a benefit associated with that. And as I mentioned, the 2 nurseries that we're using, we need to space out our harvests. Ideally speaking, with our current operation, we would be in a position where we would harvest or thin 120 acres a year. For several reasons, we haven't gotten that completely smoothed out, but we're working toward that. We're looking at creative techniques, so no reason to change the plan. Thank you, Fonga. I can't tell you how that's going to go yet, but check back with me and I'll be happy to tell you. And we have a group of people that we've been working with. Sometimes there's a change out, but when it comes to site preparation or banking or nurseries or herbicide, whatever it is, we've got it in the book where the contacts are and their long-established relationships. For example, pine straw, Southern Forest Products, goes back to 1995. So we're able to establish those relationships. And the Tabor family told me years ago about the relationships that the Let's Say Mary Nursery would establish with the various people they did business with, primarily in Baker County. So we appreciate that lesson as well. Well, we gather every summer. As you can see, we have a schedule in July right after the 4th. We gather everything last year as a family. This was a couple of years ago up in an area close to Augusta. And we talk about what we've accomplished in the first 6 months. We try to get these young folks here to understand what that is all about, and we try to have some fun and games in the process of doing it. So that's all part of the plan. We put out a quarterly newsletter called Timber Talk. A lot of proprietary information in there, but we're trying to keep people involved in current operations. We've already started to bring in, between Maggie and Fred and I, we have 6 children, and they're all minority owners of ETS, so we're trying to get them involved. So I can't talk enough about the idea of succession planning. We're spotlighting Ian here. My grandson, he was 6 years old then, and he's standing in front of a 2-year-old longwood that came out of the poultry. I'm sorry, longwood. It's a slash vine. 4 years later, Ian is much taller. He's age 10. He's standing in the same spot. When I'm trying to say here is that you can think of these trees and the quality of the trees just like you can think of the money that you invest. Ian is much taller and so are the trees. What kind of questions before we mount up? John?
How many trees per acre are you planting now in Longleaf in recognition of lack of demand for?
Longleaf. The spacing there is 6 by 12, and I'm sorry, 8 foot rows, 8 foot by 6 foot, 605 trees for the acre. With the loblolly, we're following a different regimen. There is going to be 8 by 12, and so they're going to be 454 stems to the acre. What we inherited from my dad was 6 by 10, 726, bare root. And as I said before, when you're paying more money up front and you expect a higher survivability rate, because it being a containerized seedling and genetically improved, then you don't have to plant as much. So yes, you're spending quite a bit more for the seedlings. However, you're doing much better in terms of survival. Other questions? We're going to mount up, and we're heading over to track 3.
This first track, what are we going to be looking at?
Okay, it's a loblolly site with quite a bit of a natural area to it, which is unusual for us since most of our sites are oil field sites. We're taking a left on London. So out of 310 acres, 123 or so are environmentally protected wetlands, and we got to be very careful with any kind of work we do in there. It's one of the places that makes us very, very unique. We're about ready to plant our third set of loblolly that's in there, and this is going to be the funga treated. So we're going to see 3 different stages of loblolly growth at this site. Loblolly is unusual for us. The vast majority of BTF plantings are in slash or in longleaf, which are more oriented towards pine straw. Loblolly, we don't have a pine straw market for that. So we're strictly growing timber here for timber products. And we're going to meet our hunters here as well. So we're going to go by a site and stop briefly to see where the logging operation went on that we'll be planting hopefully before Christmas. Everything is ready on this site to put the seedlings in place. This is the one that's going to be, we're going to have a small area which is the controlled untreated, and the vast majority of it will be in these funga treated seedlings. So the site was sprayed by helicopter about 3-4 weeks ago, and our contractor there is Red River Specialties out of Shreveport, Louisiana, and our local contractor who did the flying was Southern Helicopters. This area was sprayed 3 weeks ago by helicopter, and you can see it's kind of broken up in here. It's going to be a little bit tricky for us to plant, but this is where the funga-treated loblolly are going in. So right now we are on the east side of the property headed south. We're going to come down here to the intersection and turn to the right and get to an open area, and I'm going to give everybody an idea of what we're looking at over here. This is the only place we're going to see loblolly on our route. Track 3 was bought by our dad in 1942. Today it's 310 acres We made a circle around the south, and you saw the open area that was logged in the spring. It was sprayed about 3-4 weeks ago by helicopter, by Red River Specialties, our herbicide contractor. We're ready to plant as soon as we get some moisture in the ground. So we continue to pray to the good Lord to send us rain that will soften the ground and prepare the ground. Time-wise, we could actually plant these seedlings now if we had the right conditions. The cold is good, but obviously we need to soften the ground. This is a total loblolly site, and out of 310 acres, 123 of it is in natural stands. Environmentally sensitive areas that we have to be very, very careful with any kind of work that we do there to protect the water. You saw plenty of bird life and so forth as we were driving in. These loblolly that you went through, there's about 81 acres and 2 sites there, and that was planted in 2019. Again, these were IFCO containerized seedlings. We've got a natural area here, and then 2012 loblolly that are on the north side. So it's very, very unusual for BTF operations, because you'll see more loblolly here than you will on any of our other sites. So the ones that we're headed to are slash sites and a small plantation of longleaf. Our hunter is Robbie. Where's Robbie?
Behind you, Mr.
He's prepared this area very well. I'd mentioned to you that we share ownership with the critters and the birds and so forth that call this their home. We also share it with our hunters, who take really, really, really excellent care. Our current group of hunters on this site probably been with us for close to 10 years now.
I've been with you 10 years.
And that's all 10 of our timber tracts are leased by hunters. We do not advertise, they come and find us, and there's a waiting list. So we're proud of that kind of relationship. One of the things I learned from my dad, never take more from the land than God intended. Chisel that in stone, folks, because that's word of wisdom. So we go with the land. This could be a very good slash site, frankly. That area to the north was really, really hard to plant. So we went with loblolly in that particular case. It's unusual for our operation. You're going to see quite a bit of slash in the next 2 sites that we go to. Other questions? John?
When we did the site tour here,
Yes, sir.
Doug was on the committee, but he was too busy working with Swanee and the hurricane damage to come with us. But back here to my right, there is a creek that flows from back that way all the way back, and it ends up in a sinkhole.
Right.
And it was really cool because I was watching the water flow. Sorry it's not flowing now, but it dropped into that hole and you could see it going down into the ground. Like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. A river going into the ground. And you're talking about your cartography. Right. We also went over to one of your other locations.
Thatcher Lake.
And the lake over there is really cool. And you could see the big sinkholes you were talking about that were holding water at that time. So this is a really cool site, and from tree farm,
it can fill up.
Yeah, from tree farm
like
perspective, water is one of the most important parts of the 4 prongs. And this one, the water features here just said, this is the tree farmer of the year.
I think these statistics are still valid. In the state of Florida, there are 33 magnitude 1 springs. That put over 1 million gallons per hour out of the spring. 19 of the 33 are in the Swanee River Valley. We are rich in water resources, and it's vital that we protect them, frankly. I mean, this is the essence of life, literally. So when you're on this side of the Withlacoochee-Swanee Basin, where everything is except for the two in Madison County, sinkholes are predominant. Sinkholes do not represent any kind of a problem for us. We can literally grow timber right up to the edge of a sinkhole. But following best management practices, we're going to stay out of that area. It's great mass production for the wildlife. You just have to be careful when you're driving your tractor and mowing between the rows that you don't go too fast.
I was asked to give a short talk on Florida best management practices. And if you look in your manual, if you look on page 10 and page 11, we do have 2 sections devoted to both wildlife BMPs, or best management practices, and silvicultural BMPs. Chris Demers, who put the document together, you will see a whole page on silvicultural best management practices for forestry. And then if you go to the back side of that page, you'll see we have just a short fact sheet on wildlife best management practices for forestry. Now these are the condensed versions. In Florida, we actually have 2 manuals. We have a whole manual devoted to best management practices for silvicultural use. And then we also have a secondary manual, forestry best management practices for imperiled wildlife species. Now these are only for state wildlife species, not federal. Federal guidelines, bald eagles, some of your other
Gray wolves,
red wolves, they have their own federal regulations, but we have, I think it's 11 species. You know, your gopher tortoise, your burrowing owls, your little blue herons. You got 5 species of fish or crayfish that are protected. And we know there's going to be some overlap in our forestry operations and the wildlife. So we try to reach a happy balance to ensure that, you know, the tree farmer is still staying productive, but we're still not impacting water quality. We're not impacting our wildlife habitat. One interesting feature about this site, and Joe had mentioned this, is there used to be an old grist mill historically over 100 years ago. The remains, he said, he remembers seeing them whenever he was a child. But Joe and, John and I and Johnny Pitts actually walked this thing just to see if we could see any remnants of it. And you'll still see a channel. It's literally there, but your best management practices, if you do have a water feature on your property, then you do have some recommended practices. They used to be voluntary. With water management districts and the importance of water quality, they have transitioned in what we call quasi-regulatory. So at one time, you could choose to follow them to do the best thing. Now, the word is quasi-regulatory, where it's more of an expectation, and we do have manuals and guidance on what to do. We do surveys on private lands where we go out, and like this intermittent stream, which does go into a karst feature, the water flows underground into a sinkhole. We have setback requirements. We would avoid any kind of mechanical disturbance, any sort of herbicide, even timber harvest. You could thin within this special management zone, but it's going to vary. Typically for an intermittent stream, you're going to have a 35-foot primary zone, and then based on the soil type, a secondary zone as well. And if it's sandy soils, relatively flat, you're at 35 feet. If it was clay soil and you had a relatively steeper slope, then you could have to come back 75 to 100 feet. If it's an outstanding Florida waterway, such as the Swanee River, then you could have a 200-foot primary no harvest zone, no site preparation zone. I would encourage you to go online. Both these manuals are available online. And then as a landowner, they have what's called a notice of intent to implement best management practices. If you've not completed these, it's just a simple 2-page form, a questionnaire. Complete it. I work as a BMP forester for this area. And I cover Region 2, which is 20 counties in this area. I also serve as a District 5 tree farm representative. So if you're in the tree farm program and you have questions about BMPs, feel free to contact me and I'll do my best to give you the best recommendation for your specific site. For that sinkhole, intermittent stream, intermittent wetland, outstanding Florida waterway, river, whatever water feature you may have, we can, give you the best management practice advice or recommendations. I'll point this out. Like here's a Chinese tallow tree. It's an exotic invasive, and we're technically right on the edge of the special management zone of this intermittent stream. So we'd have a 35-foot buffer. Normally herbicide work is discouraged, but for treating exotic and invasives, if they're using a backpack, hack and squirt, then treating that would be perfectly fine. If it's planted pines, you can still harvest with the SMZ. If you get a chance to look through this manual, I'm just going to pick a quick photo. They have all the different examples. If it's an intermittent lake, a regular lake, if you look through here, they give you harvest recommendations. They give you if it's a stringer, just the best management practices needed to protect either water quality or to protect wildlife habitat. Ginger, I'm going to pick on you for a second. She's Fish and Wildlife Service, but could you just maybe expand on the Fish and Wildlife BMPs a little bit?
So my name's Ginger Fiegel. I'm the regional coordinator for our landowner assistance program here in North Central Florida. And what we do is we help private landowners manage for wildlife habitat. And what specifically what Brian is speaking about is the wildlife best management practices for forestry. We also have them for agriculture as well. Basically, it's providing you guidances so that you can reduce impacts to fish and wildlife species during your operations. So it could be something as simple as where you're locating your loading deck, how you're operating your machinery, what times of the years to prevent the tortoise hatchlings, from accidentally running over tortoise hatchlings. But basically that notice of intent, that piece of paper that Brian showed you is a voluntary, acclamation that you're going to do the best that you can to prevent these impacts to fish and wildlife resources. So if for some reason something did happen during your operations and you followed all your guidances, you are provided assurances for liability of take of those species. It doesn't mean you can go out and intentionally harm a species, but if something happened to, say, a visibly, if you avoided the visibly and apparent gopher tortoise burrows, you will be removed from take of the species. So happy to work with you guys on that. What else about that? It's aquatic, burrowing, and nesting animals. So your gopher tortoises, burrowing owls, sandhill cranes, any of the wading birds like the little blue heron. But we go out every other year and we look at the survey to make sure that those things are being implemented. It's an opportunity for us to get together with landowners, work with forestry, so that we can see that those guidances are being followed. But you do have to do that notice of intent for it to be something that could be applicable to your property. It's not just, I follow these guidelines, which is awesome to do if you follow the guidelines, but having that piece of paper is the contract basically showing that you're enrolled in the program.
And just to summarize, never take more from the land than God intended. Mm-hmm. And you can see that We have sweet gum here, and typically you'll find that on wet sites, as Robbie was saying. The area that we're standing right now, it can fill up fast. Fred and I can tell you stories about tagging along after our dad. Maybe Maggie too. On this site, it's been in our family since 6 years before I was born. I'm 77, so you do the math. We grew up around this place and visiting it and listening to our dad and trying to pay attention as much as you could as a youngster, but it's the foundation, if you will, of BTF. Ginger.
I do want to just mention real quick, Florida Tree Farm program, we are a volunteer nonprofit organization. And the idea is that we're integrating wood wildlife recreation and wild water. So, you know, as we're working around, we're going through all these management, see how all these things are integrated together. A lot of my work is done with private landowners and knowing that the only way they're going to have income on their property is either through forestry operations or hunting leases, something like that. So I'd love to hear a little bit maybe from your hunters and how that relationship is with you.
Fantastic.
We appreciate you coming out here today and talking to us for sure, but how that relationship is and the importance of private lands and providing that recreation.
I can tell you, I mean, I've hunted a long time. I used to hunt on like reindeer pieces. I mean, it's a whole lot different when you got a landowner, you know, private landowner like Mr. Joe, and you know, the relationship, you get to know him and everything. If I ask for something, he tries his best to help me do it. If he asks, I will get it done because he is the landowner. This is his land, not mine. I get the privilege to hunt it, but I treat it like my land. So.
And so do the critters.
This is just, I mean, we treat the critters out here like, you know, we feed them good and we manage them.
Yeah.
We don't shoot first things that come out. I mean, we try to teach our kids that. You know, we do take kids, say, okay, this would be a good deer for you to take your first one or whatever. After that, we just say, we're just going to wait for mature animals. That's all we try to do. Same with turkeys. I got several neighbors that ride their Polaris's, ride their bikes, walk, and they got my number, I got theirs. They'll call me, hey, somebody dumped a deer on the road, or there's trash along the road, or something like that, and we get out here and get it cleaned up for Mr. Joe, because
Between when the trees are harvested and the next plantation is in the ground, and we've done the steps in between, we don't want that time to exceed 18 months. We're in this thing for a long haul. Now this site over here, we're gonna do in less than that. But like I said, let's mount up and go to our next place. And thank you for Ginger for making that introduction. We, as I said before, we greatly appreciate our hunters. The next place we're going to is a slash site. We're not going to try to get out into it. It's the smallest of all of our timber tracts, 100 acres. We've got about a 15, 18-minute drive to get over there. And we don't have any of our IFCO representatives, but this is the first attempt that we had in 2018 of putting in high-quality, genetically improved containerized trees. So let's mount up and go. Okay. All right, this is track 2 out of the 10. At 100 acres, it's the smallest of all of our 10 timber tracts. What you're seeing in front of you are slash pines that came from IFCO and Moultrie. They were planted in October of 2018. Which means they have now finished their 7th growing season. This past winter, it was mowed between the rows. It hasn't been sprayed yet. I'm anticipating that in the next 3-4 months, that spraying will take place and the first raking of straw will occur on this site. Again, 7-year-old trees. Anybody wants to talk to me about the advocacy of planting high quality, genetically improved, containerized trees, this is a testament to it.
Do you have any fusiform? Do you have any rust?
No. I've seen some on our road coming in. I don't see a great deal now in here. Again, that's one of the things that they work on in the nursery. So we're all proud of these. This was planted on a regimen of 605 trees to the acre. So 6-foot spacing in the drill, 12 feet between the rows.
Now you mow every year between
No.
the trees? You haven't mowed?
No, not in this plantation. Our contractor does the work, and he's determined that he's not going to mow until the year before he's ready to rake. So mow, spray. Spray is glyphosate and 2,4-D. And it's just to kill off this younger stuff that's growing in here, so that we're pretty much closed in now. So there's not a lot that's growing in between. Some people have looked at this and said, well, wait a minute, your rows aren't straight. Doesn't hurt as far as any of the equipment or anybody moving through it. This was hand planted. The contractor that we use for that comes out of Russellville, Arkansas, Superior Forestry. They have two business practices. One is doing tree planting in 11 states in the southeast, from East Texas up to Southern Virginia. The other thing they do, if anybody has any roots back in California, pay attention to this, they do the maintenance under power lines. Oh, Hawaii is another place where that might come in handy. So it's interesting, their workforce, one of their founders 35 years ago was from the province of, or the state in Mexico of Oaxaca, which is south of Mexico City. And that's where the labor force comes from, and I think their program is H3B. And so we have worked with them since this place was planted, and they've done a wonderful job for them. I'll be the first to sing their praises and pass on the information how to get in touch with them. Before that, we were largely doing bare root and machine planting. Everything we've done since then has been containerized and hand planting. So again, lessons that we've learned over the years and adapted to our practices. Any questions?
Joe, what was this site before it was in slash pine?
So I think this one dates back to when I was in high school that my dad acquired it. And it was farmland. Back in the days of small farms, and a lot of those farms were in the families of black farmers. In the post Civil War era, for literally a century, maintaining small farms to take care of their families. And then generally through succession and so forth, the land would come on the market and be able to be sold. But the size of this place was originally 120 acres. The family retained 20 when they sold the 100 to my dad, and transformed farmland into timberland. I have to tell you, there's a rock deposit under here. In fact, about 400 yards in that direction are the remnants of a rock wall that was used where they picked up the rocks literally and built the fencing, if you will, around where a homestead was. I will tell you that when you hit one of those rocks with your mower, yeah, you'll stop pretty fast. I've been there. I've done that. I don't do it anymore.
So what's your overall plan for this? You're going to do the pine straw this year and I
Next
assume
year.
next year and 5 years or 10 or what?
Probably this site, it will not be thinned, my prediction. It will be raked until the pine straw plays out, and the age of the trees will probably be 22 years at the time. But again, we're dealing with a new type of seedling here, new lessons that we're learning, so it may very well extend past that. But our experience would say with slash no more than about 22 years, and we'd go ahead and take it down and then go through the regimen of replanting and getting ready with the next iteration. I probably won't be here then. That's 15 years from now, but that would be the plan.
Before we leave, can you talk a little bit about when you used to work the land yourself and when you decided to go ahead and maybe sell some of the equipment and work with contractors and
All right.
those type things, and why?
Yeah, I had a second tractor. I'm sorry, BTF had a second tractor, which was a John Deere 5200. It was a two-wheel. It would be this time of year I'd be mowing. 6-foot bush hog. At that time, 10-foot spacing between the rows. And yeah, I'd make the rounds and bounce up and down. Generally, I could sometimes speed up depending on how straight the rows were and so forth to B2 in terms of speed, so 3 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour. I'm trying to remember some of the numbers. I could do 50 acres in 16, 17 hours, something like that. And I was good for probably, especially this time of year when it's relatively cool, maybe 6 hours or so before I'd bounced enough. But I've done and continue to do a little bit of the backpack small spraying. But I'm pretty much getting out of that now, frankly. You can understand why. But when you're in your 50s, you're a little bit more mobile and agile, and your knees are in better shape. We're at Tract 5, the BoylesTreeFarm. This became owned by my dad and myself in 1981. So our history here goes back 34 years and several plantations. We're in a slash site right now, and we have a small longleaf site on the other side. These trees were planted in 2009. They've been raked for pine straw a number of years. We've gotten good income off them. You can see that we had some storm damage in here from 13 months ago, 14 months ago, but nothing we can't live with. On the other side, you can see a longleaf site that was planted in 2023. And you can just see the young seedlings popping up above the grass and so forth. Probably 6 years from now, we'll be raking pine straw from over in this site. I imagine that we'll go for continue to rake pine straw over here for another 2 years, 3 years before we harvest, knock it down, and start again. These were planted bare root with a machine planting. We did heavy site preparation beforehand in order to be able to do pine straw work. These are 10-foot rows, 6 feet in the drill, so they were planted 726. As I said before, my dad would be very happy with, he was a slash man. He's the one that began us on the pine straw work, and the contract then was per acre. I transitioned that, Fred and I did, to per bale with a pine straw contractor we worked with. So first pine straw production was probably 86, 87. Pretty close to when that market began in this area. And he died in 1991. So it was just in its nascent form then as opposed to now. And you can pick out just eye-wise and so forth, the way it stands right now, which ones would go to the sawmill, like that one right there, and which ones would go to the pulp mill. Because when the loggers leave, it looks like a war zone. Easy enough, we're used to that. And burn the piles. Labor Day comes up, and we'll have the helicopter in here spraying. And our seedlings on order, I learned years ago, is literally when the loggers are in here, make arrangements with the nursery to get your seedlings on order. I've been boxed out before.
We've been learning the hard way.
Yes, sir, we have. Ginger.
What about areas that you've had some adaptive management, like the wildfires that you've had? Can you talk to us about that?
We haven't had a great deal of problem with fires being set. Our most recent one was June of 2024. It was on no one was on the site. It was up in Hamilton County. We're blaming Greg Staten for that. Nobody was on the property. The gates were closed. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. No thunderstorms, no lightning. And a fire springs up. Randy Tharp tells us that they put that in the unknown category. I'm convinced that somebody tossed a cigarette out the window. And it affected, I originally thought about 18 acres. It looks like more about 13 now. And I thought initially that we would have a pretty fair survival rate from the fire. And then 3 months later, along comes a lady named Helene. And it's pretty much of a waste zone now. All right, we're on another part of track 5. Again, just to reorient you, 275 acres owned by BoylesTreeFarm, largely laid out in this direction. This is the A block over here. These are 13-year-old slash. They've just recently been raked. The cable up tells me that I should be expecting a check before too long to be able to deposit in our BTF account at the Madison County Community Bank. Income. So you can see what it looks like shortly after it's been raked. We have an access through here. All these rows are planted in this direction. So we've got plenty of room to have the trailers down here to be stuffed. 1,380 bales per trailer when they're doing manually raked square bales.
What's your bale per acre average?
I'd say probably at 5 years, 6 years into the raking, we'll be getting as much as 300 bales to the acre.
Times 11.
Yeah.
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 So again, as productive as a site is like this, okay, we would be coming up in 2 years' time to a decision point. Are we going to thin this and take it out of the pine straw market? And the answer is, in all likelihood, no, we're not going to do that. We'll continue to grow it till the pine straw goes out, knock it down.
Return on income is not return of income.
There you go. So these are too old to be thinned, as we said before. And that's just my guess. Again, as I said, slash is something my dad, our dad, would be a great advocate of, as he was. This is a place, I keep pointing fingers at my friend Ginger over here. I was taking her on a farm tour. The gate was down, I guess about 5 weeks ago. We turned into here 30 turkeys. Now I did not get out and count them. They were moving a little bit fast, but I've never seen so many in one place. Okay.
Turkey track right there.
Yep.
Right there. Well, they're all over the place here.
They love it.
Damn. Look at that. There are turkey tracks everywhere.
They love it. This is, yeah, they don't need a convention center. They just, it's quite amazing. I probably speak for a lot of you, to see the wildlife in their habitat is just a thrill. It really is. And my father came from a farm family near here. They worked 6 days a week and they spent Sunday in church. They didn't hunt. I learned how to fish when I was a boy, and we enjoyed fishing and so forth, but I didn't grow up with a hunting tradition. I got here almost 30 years ago when I retired from the Air Force, and I said, I need to take up this hunting thing. And I learned very quickly that the amount of work that the hunters do is just amazing. And obviously that passed me by. I appreciate what it is that they do. I'm not a hunter myself, but I greatly appreciate what they do in order to be able to feed the animals, take care of the animals, watch them. They put out an incredible amount of work. The old idea that it's the first day of general gun season, you pull your gun out of the cabinet and go out in the woods, these guys are putting a lot more into that than that. And I certainly do appreciate them.
And there are more eyes on your property.
They are. You're right, Tab.
The Fields and Forests program just launched in Florida just a couple months ago. So what the program does is it looks for landowners who want to diversify their land, maybe previously used it for row cropping, hay production, cattle, and are now interested in forestry aspects. So we help landowners pay the cost of what it takes to put trees in the ground. And then we also provide annual payments of $30 per acre every year to help with those costs of maintaining the land or property taxes or things like that. So the only requirement is that it must be unforested for the past 10 years. So just want to let you guys know it is not for people that are trying to replant already planted land or clear cut land. But if you guys have any questions, come see me after. I'd be happy to chat more about it.
Okay, I will ask more questions, but our next stop is lunch over at Camp Weed, courtesy.
All right, everybody. I just want to take a moment and thank everybody for coming out to the tree farm tour today so that we can celebrate the Boyles Tree Farm being the Florida Outstanding Tree Farm of the Year. Certainly appreciate the Boyles family and all the work that you've done, the legacy of your property, and the great management and stewardship of the forest. Mr. Joe, I want to super congratulate you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and spending a day out in the field with you. Actually, I've been out here twice and appreciated your advice and your guidance and everything. So I've learned from you as much as what you've been able to provide to this property. So thank you so much.
Well, we're certainly grateful to the American Tree Farm System, to the Florida Forest Service, Florida Forestry Association, and quite frankly, I end every Sunday by saying this: the peace of the Lord that passes all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in the knowledge and love of God and of His Son, Jesus Christ. And may God Almighty, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit be amongst you and remain with you always. Amen.